Hello, I'm Sarah Molinar. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'd like to discuss how I got to publish the Advanced Piano Technique book. This thought came to me in 2021 as I was teaching an increasing number of advanced piano students, and I noticed that they didn't have a technique book that had everything written out in full. Many technique books had elements such as scales written out in 2 octaves, when in the examination requirement is to have it in 4. Some of the technique books would have most of the elements written out, but might be missing formula patterns, for example, or may not quite have the chord progression or cadence that the students need as well. And I knew that there was a gap in the market, and I was very eager to fill it. So I began writing. This started in this music notation program called Sibelius, which is a very popular notation program that I'd been using for many years at that point, and it was just a matter of formatting the file to work for a book, worrying about large enough page margins that it could be bound properly, and keeping all the title formatting consistent, the font formatting consistent, all the spacing consistent. So I developed a kind of template file that I began using and copying for each of the elements. This was many hours of writing each of the items in the book, and then also going through all of the files with an editor. So everything would be very consistent, very cohesive. All the fingering would be in the correct spots. Nothing would be awkwardly hovering above a note or too close to a note. That was a very tedious process. Following that, I now had a bunch of files that I exported from Sibelius into a PDF form and assembled the manuscript. And then I needed to have it published. There was the challenge, because there are many publishing companies that exist, and I reached out to several of them, but they required some kind of financial commitment, which I totally understood. Some companies required an initial deposit of a couple $1,000 because they were going to take on a risk of a book that's brand new on the market, and they wouldn't know it would sell, so they don't want to lose money, which I understand. But I also didn't have a few $1,000s to give them because I'm a musician. I don't want a few $1,000s in books. I'd rather have that in my bank account. Other companies wanted an initial deposit for a run of a number of books printed, like a few hundred that they would print, and then you'd have to pay for them to be printed as well as stored in their warehouse. And there was a monthly storage fee. Or I could store it in my space, but I don't have a lot of space, and I don't want to rent a storage space because that's also a financial commitment. And then I'd have to worry about shipping the books out every order, and I would have to be the point of contact for all the sales, which is additional time, energy, and effort on my part, which I could have done, but I thought there must be something else out there that's a little lower risk with less financial commitment. And that's where I came across Amazon KDP, the Kindle Direct Publishing. This is a print-on-demand company, not at all sponsored in this video. They offer the option to submit the manuscript, and they will print it on demand, which means anytime a customer orders a book, they print that one book and ship that to the customer. Now, of course, I make a percentage of the sale, not 100%, because Amazon has to pay for printing of the book and shipping of the book. So I get a cut, but because it's Amazon and they have worldwide distribution, I thought this would be a great option. Finally, in November 2023 is when I made the decision to submit my manuscript to Amazon. Shortly after is when the first book was sold. And that was a very happy day because I knew it was possible. It was now out there in the world for others to purchase. It started gaining momentum, being sold in Canada. Then copies were sold in the States. Then it gained some worldwide momentum. Copies sold in France and in Poland and in Italy and in Australia. I was so excited. In 2024 is when I was approaching 100 copies sold. Just a little over a year later, that is when I had the idea that maybe I could write some companion volumes, because the advanced book was definitely selling, and what if there was an intermediate book? And then what if there was an elementary book? In 2025, I began writing those two books in the summer. And I used the music notation software called Dorico, as I learned through their 30-day free trial period that Dorico has many more features to customize the notation, and it was a little more user-friendly than Sibelius for me. It was a bit of a learning curve at first, agreed, but it was able to do so much more than Sibelius. So I made the switch, but kept the formatting as close as possible to the advanced book. So keeping the font the same, the margins the same, the spacing the same. So it would be less noticeable that I used a separate piece of software. And once again, this was edited, and once again, I submitted it to Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. That was back in January 2026. And very quickly, it started gaining momentum, as there are significantly more students wanting elementary and intermediate books versus advanced books. From there, I thought it might be a great idea to have these books translated into French, because I reside in Canada, which is a bilingual country, and maybe I can tap into the French market. Since I know some French, but not enough to have a book professionally done, I did hire translators for the books and a French editor, as well as proofreader, so I could have these books very well looked after, as good as my English books, and they will be released soon. And I feel like this whole process has been very educational, because I've learned to use Sibelius to a higher level, then transitioning to Dorico. All of my artwork and some of the introduction pages are done using Canva, which has been wonderful. And then learning how this whole publishing side of things works. I did find the Amazon process to be very straightforward. So if you have any questions, I welcome that in the comments below. And I will also link each of these 3 books in the comments below so you can go check them out.